Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about American Gods, Season 1, Episode 1. It's called The Bone Orchard. We'll start spoiler free, as we do with Episode 1s. I almost said otherwise, but we're starting spoiler free. This is the new show from Starz. It's based on a Neil Gaiman book, and I have no idea what I just watched, quite frankly. It was, there was things that happened, there was glorious visuals, there was violence.
Yeah, and just before we go into the actual conversation, I have read the book.
Yes, you have, which
And
will
you
make for
haven't.
a weird
Yes,
conversation.
I think this might be the first time this has actually happened on a significant level.
And I typically try to avoid you reading things.
But I read this long before it was
Yeah, you
announced.
did. No, you did. But I typically avoid it because we can't really speculate when one of us has already read ahead.
Yeah, I should say it was a good few years ago. Obviously, it was before it was announced that I read it. So the small minutiae of it, I don't necessarily remember, but the broader strokes.
Yes. So speculation is going to be a bit weird in this one, if there's any at all.
Yeah.
Because I could make some, but he's going to sit there being smug, knowing the facts, and that'll annoy me. So I might avoid it anyway.
You hate it if I know something and you're just there guessing, don't you?
I do. Because you know if I'm right or wrong irritates me to no end. It really does.
It's fine when we're both in the dark and just
Yeah, exactly.
guessing randomly.
Aye, because in those situations, I assume I'm right and you're wrong. And then when I'm proven otherwise, I'll forget that we ever made any predictions, and it's fine. I live with my life. It's okay.
Indeed,
But in this case, you're going to remember when I said something stupid, and you're going to bring it up.
I am.
So I'm just not going to do it. We're going to talk about the facts as we know them thus far, and that's it.
That is fair. Now, I was looking forward to this a lot because I'm a fan. You pretty less so, but you know it was
cool. But
followers involved. You know,
there was nothing about it in particular. It was like, oh, that's it looked good from what I'd seen of a trailer or whatever, and that was kind of it. I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of because I was expecting something out there because. Well, it's called American Gods for a start. Like, okay, are we actually dealing with gods, or is it a metaphorical title? Like, right even from the start when they announced it, I don't know that. Is it literally just gods? Are we dealing with gods? It appears that we are,
Yes.
from what I've seen in this first episode. Certainly, Ian McShane's character, Mr. Wednesday, appears to be a god. Bilquis appears to be a god. A character who claims to be a leprechaun. He may just be a leprechaun, or he could be a god. One of those two.
Yeah,
There's at least one other character who's either a god or something else, but certainly not a human.
absolutely.
And then debate's open for a few others as well who have subtle hints about things. But the gist of the first episode is our main character, Shadow Moon, which is one of the most ridiculous names I have ever heard. If this was an alias, if this was like a superhero, and he had a real name, and this was like Shadow Moon was his hero name. Cool, but first name Shadow, last name Moon. So I mean, it's fine, but
Yep.
I did not know that was his name. So when he said his name was Shadow Moon, I was like, "What?
Have a moment there where it takes you out of it.
Did I hear that right? Shadow Moon." So he's in prison. He gets out of prison and he's on his way back to. He wants to see his wife, but he gets the unfortunate news. This isn't a spoiler. This is right at the start. This is the premise. He finds out just as he's about to leave prison that his wife has died in a car accident, and he meets the mysterious Mr. Wednesday, played by Ian McShane, on his way back to his hometown, and weird things happen, and he gets a job offer. It's kind of that's the main gist of this first episode, and there's obviously some stuff revealed later on, and. We'll talk about that in spoilers, but that's the kind of gist of it. As for the quality, did we enjoy the show? Well, I'll ask you first. Did you enjoy the show?
I loved it, honestly. I really did.
Good. I quite liked it as well. I liked the visuals first and foremost. It looks fantastic. It's got some really sort of mind-bendy stuff. Whenever there's, and you know I'm going to talk about this, but whenever there's either a story being told or there's a dream or something that's just not straight right now reality, we switch aspect ratios.
Yeah, and in one particular instance, it does something really cool with the aspect ratio as
We're
well.
not talking about that in spoiler
No, no,
free.
no, I know. I'm just saying it really plays with it, what it's doing.
Yeah. Um, part of me almost wants to rebel against that and say, no, if you're going to switch the aspect ratio, you adhere to it, damn it. But we'll talk about that in spoilers. So it does that thing where it goes wider, we get the black bars, we get the letterboxing, which I'm all for. So it looks great, visually very good.
Yes.
I'm intrigued by the story so far. I think there's some of it that is intentionally very unclear right now.
Mm.
I think it
Yeah.
puts me in the same place as the main character where I'm not really sure what the hell's going on in the grand scheme of things, and that's okay. I like the violence.
Oh yeah, it's bloody as hell.
The opening sort of segment in particular was especially violent, and then there's a couple of other things. I'll say this: I was expecting something to be out there. I just from the reputation, I got the sense that it was going to be something with weird things happening, and it lived up to that expectation. There were certainly scenes in this I was not expecting things
Yes.
to happen in,
Yeah, I know the exact scene you may be referring to. At least one.
to the point where I was like, "Wait a minute, is this what's happening here?" And I thought I noticed something, and I was like, "Oh, no, it's a trick of the eye. It's not happening." And then 5 seconds later, they were making it very clear it was happening. I'm like, "Oh, all right, okay."
Yep.
And I was doing that sort of throughout. Yeah, I liked it. I liked it quite a bit.
I'm glad.
I think I like it from a filmmaking perspective right now more than I do from a story perspective right now.
That's fair. I mean, I think for me, what I should say is the story itself. Like, there's no end game that would have made it amazingly satisfying. It's not a story; it's a journey. Like that. That's what the book is. It's a series of things that happen, and that kind of is this first episode to a degree. It's a journey, and this is the start of the journey.
Yeah, it sets up some mystery stuff. I mean, I have some thoughts about a couple of things, but it, I was along for the ride. Everything was intriguing enough. When lead actor's pretty good. Ricky Whittle, his name is, who plays Shadowman. Yeah, he's pretty good. Carries the show well. Ian McShane though kind of steals the show. Every time he's on the screen, he kind of just hogs the frame,
Absolutely.
and he's sort of. It's like he knows, because obviously we're thinking he's, well, for sure, but I'm like, alright, so he's a god, he's controlling things, he's having more power over things than he's letting on. So he's so confident about everything he's saying, and he's just kind of oozing this confidence in the scenes, and it really carries everything going forward.
Yeah, and they have great chemistry as well,
They do have good chemistry.
which is very important, really, seeing as they're the core characters.
Yeah, so that's also a plus, so that's good. Yeah, that's kind of my spoiler-free thoughts. Very stylized. I like the style, which is good. Because I have to admit, I'm not as in love with Hannibal as a lot of people are.
But visually,
Especially visually.
oh, interesting.
I think Hannibal was too visually up its own arse for its own good.
Fair enough.
To the point where there was times in Hannibal where I wished it just gave me a scene straight. Because I thought it was being overly stylized that I never got like a firm footing on like how I felt about things. I never
Okay.
knew how I felt about characters, and it put me into this weird place. Whereas with this, as much as it was going mad with certain things and it was doing these really ultra stylized things at times, there still was scenes where it was just two characters sitting down and having a conversation. I liked the overall sort of like. There was this foreboding mood right from the get-go. It always made a point of showing you the sky and the clouds kind of like rumbling, and there was always this foreboding tone, like something, pardon the word, but something biblical is about to go down.
Yeah.
And I had that feeling, so it conveyed a mood, which was nice. But like I say, it's still, unlike Hannibal, at least for me, it still slowed down and let scenes just play out.
No, that's fair. And I think actually the over stylized nature of things works better in this show in general, just because the
does.
concept already at its core is just more out there. Whereas Hannibal's relatively grounded. Whereas this is completely just out there from the start. So presenting that with weird visuals works.
For the record, I don't hate Hannibal. There's things I like about Hannibal. That said, I hated season 3. I hated most of season 3 with a passion.
Yeah, I love season 1 and 2 like, a lot more than you do.
Yeah.
But I haven't even got past like 3 episodes of season 3.
The first half of season 3 is terrible, and honestly, part of the reason why it's terrible is that I also hated the movie Hannibal, and I like Ridley Scott, but that movie's shit. It's boring as hell.
Way to put it blunt.
And a lot of that reminded me of that movie. Like, it was kind of playing along the same beats and doing similar things. So that was like, oh. It got a little bit better in season 3 when it got to the Red Dragon stuff, but even then I was like, oh, I'd rather be watching Manhunter. Not the Brett Ratner Red Dragon movie. I'll watch Michael Mann's Manhunter, thank you very much. Because his style, well, I mean, I say that as if Brett Ratner even has a style, but Michael Mann's style is much more to my taste in that movie. It's super 80s, I love it. But anyway, back to this. I liked the foreboding tone. I liked that it did slow down and let the characters just play out in scenes. It would slow down for Wednesday and Shadowman just having a conversation on the plane, having a conversation in the bar. Like, it would slow down and let the stuff happen. So as much as it had the scenes that went ultra weird, they went ultra weird in a way that was intriguing because it was introducing these things and it was symbolic and what does this mean? And I never felt like I was... I mean, obviously I felt lost in the sense that I'm not really sure what's going on here quite yet.
Yeah.
But I never felt like it was too much. Whereas in Hannibal, I did often think, right, could we please just... Can we stop with these uncomfortable close-ups for a minute and let me just take in the scene? But yeah, that's kind of the thing. I'm into the story, though. Filmmaking more so, but the story has promise. So, no, I'm down. So let's get some spoilers then. Let's do some spoilers. So full spoilers from this point on for episode 1 of American Gods. So let's talk about the opening. Let's talk about the opening, like 5-10 minutes, however long that the Viking segment lasted.
I think it was just over 5 minutes.
And this is where I come back to it looking good. It looks like a movie, especially this part, because you don't typically see... And I know there's like a show called Vikings, and you get your Game of Thrones and stuff, and they've got kind of styles. Yeah. But this was also in the wide ratio. This was in the 2:3:5 anamorphic ratio. And... So it looked high budget, movie level visuals looked great, and it was this story which was being told by what looked like a professor. I understand more about him just for the fact that I seen what he's credited as in the credits, because it's similar to other characters are credited. So I have more opinions about him now, just based on what I saw.
But we'll get to that when it's in the show.
Yeah. But so that's this character, this professor guy, he's writing down a story, and he's telling this story about these Vikings and how they find this island and they're looking for salvation or whatever, but there's hostile elements on the island. As soon as they walk past the line, this Viking gets hit with, and this is where I was kind of getting into it, because this Viking gets hit with an obscene amount of arrows.
Yeah, it's about like completely covered.
Yeah,
there's no way of counting.
There's at least 100, 200 arrows hitting this guy. It is easy. Ridiculous. And that already was kind of offbeat. It was kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny how
I love
many
that,
it was.
Like the Vikings, we don't see where the arrows come from. They just fly off screen.
We never see the opposing force. We just them are just left with the Vikings on the beach. But the whole story basically boils down to there's no wind to get them into the water to get offshore. So they're trying to get their god to give them wind. So they have to. They start by doing violent acts. They end up poking each other's eyes out.
Yeah, it's because obviously the god they're trying to summon in this case is Odin.
Yeah, because the narrator mentions on the god is the god of war. It's the god of war.
Yes.
So eventually they actually fight out. They basically divide into two groups and just start fighting a war, and that's what eventually gives them the wind to leave. The eye stabbing scene I thought was especially good. It looked good. Like, that's the sort of thing that could look really goofy.
Yeah, but it didn't. It just looked, oh my god, they're actually doing that.
But let's talk about the actual fight, the actual war, when they split into two camps, and it is bloody as all hell.
Blood ensues, yeah.
There's like heads getting like macheted down the middle. It's not quite a machete, admittedly, but it's kind of the same kind of thing. And the blood's just pouring in slow motion, and there's blood pouring from everywhere.
I love the colour of the blood. It's this really bright, vivid red, and it just stands out.
Yeah, but not that icky 70s red where it looks really fake.
Yeah,
it's more like it looks more real, but in the color correction almost have turned it up so that it pops a bit more. And the aspect ratio thing you were talking about earlier, so this is all in the letterboxed sort of wide movie sort of scope. So there's black bars at top and bottom, and at one point during the fight, an arm gets severed, and the arm goes flying through the air, and it's holding a sword. I should mention that because that's important for the way it lands. But it actually flies out of the frame, and it goes on top of the black bar.
Yeah, like it just goes through it, and it's like, oh, that was weird.
It
weird. Really throws you for a second. It's like, okay, this could get creative, and that's right at the start of the episode, so it really lets you know what you're in for.
And I joke about being a purist about aspect ratios, but what this does though is this gives you the sense that, okay, because there's gods involved and because they're going to be warping reality, there's going to be weird things like this. And as much as nothing's being warped right now, at least not to any great extent, I don't think, other than wind, but it at least sets you up for the idea that, okay, there's going to be little things out of the ordinary that's going to start happening.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea, hey, we can break the rules. That's what you're here for. This is a rule, you know this, and then you just see it go out, and it's like, now that applies to the show as a whole. And
as long as it doesn't go too far with breaking the rules, I need some rules in my storytelling, otherwise I feel like things are just happening for happening's sake.
That's fair. You've got to set up the rules before you can break them.
And that's why that one works, because that's just a rule that exists from movies and TV.
You don't have to be some sort of cinema buff to realize that that's wrong when that goes over the bar.
Well, you say that, but then you talk Mario, who used to do stuff with us. He claimed that he didn't notice in The Dark Knight when the aspect ratio changed on the Blu-ray, even though
jarring.
Like, how you could not notice that, I don't know. So for him, maybe during that scene, the arm would just go out of frame, and he'd be like, "No, the arm went out of frame. What are you talking about? It was gone. It was gone.
It didn't exist anymore."
And of course, it's a funny ending as well, because the arm lands and like because then someone's head when it lands.
Yeah.
It's really funny. There's blood everywhere, and then the wind comes and they get to go. So that was just a brutal, violent thing. It was also showing how kind of shitty these gods are that we're getting into, like how they might be complete assholes, that they make these men butcher each other before they'll give them a bit of wind to get going.
Yeah, I like this particular segment's called "Coming to America," and obviously this is about this god coming to this land.
Yeah.
And this kind of gets into part of the themes overall of immigration, because that's kind of what it is. You've got all these gods that people have brought to America over the years, like this one here, and it's kind of how they all react with each other now is kind of a big thing with this.
Yes. So obviously that was like a prelude that sets up the themes. I'm curious to get back to this narrator, and like, will he play into the plot? Is he going to tell more relevant stories that just sort of link in? I mean, I'd love if each episode started with some sort of violent thing from the past. I know at least from early reviews that were being talked about, that these are in at least the first 4 episodes. Oh, good.
I don't know if they're necessarily like this god or this bloody or just, but these stories.
I'll tell you right now, if there's not a Kraken by the end of this season in one of these scenes, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, sure.
Kraken, give it to me. Who's the god of water?
Which one?
Oh, any of them. Whatever one.
You got a god of the sea, and then you pick your god. Pick your mythology.
Whatever one can give me a Kraken.
That is fair.
And at the end of the show, I can say it was a cracking good show. No, that was a pun. I'm proud of that pun. Right, so main plot. So Shadowman gets out of prison, and just before he gets out, he's told he's getting released a couple of days early, because for bad reasons his wife died. So since you were leaving anyway, we'll let you out now so you can go to the funeral.
Yeah, it's like 3 days early or something.
Because I'm pretty sure like, most prisoners, I think, if like someone close to them does die, they get to go to the funeral. They'll be under guard, but it is a thing that happens.
I would assume so. Yeah.
So I think in this case, like, it's just easier on us if we just let you out now. Like,
yeah,
you got 2 days left. Go.
No one's going to kick up a fuss about that short a time.
Nah. And he's like not really. He's too busy worrying about the fact that his wife died. And then, of course, halfway there, he finds out his friend, who was going to give him a job, also died, which was a neat setup because the way I interpreted that at the time, because obviously he runs into Mr. Wednesday at the airport and he talks to him on the plane, and it's in the bar when he tells him, "Oh, your friend's already dead," and he's like, "Here's the newspaper to prove it." And because I like how he keeps knowing things, and I'm assuming he knows things because he's a god, but he keeps giving him some sort of like when he first mentions that he's just got out of prison, he's like, "Oh, you've got that look in your eye," and then it's like, "Oh, it's in the newspaper." Like he keeps giving him reasons to not assume he's some powerful being.
But he's far too cryptic, isn't he?
Oh, of course he is. He's got that
Yeah.
way of talking. He's clearly more powerful than he's letting on. But that was a neat setup because I legitimately did not see the reason why they both died coming. Because the way I interpreted that scene when he said, "Oh, your friend's already dead," I assumed he'd killed him. I assumed he was responsible for killing him because he wants him to work for him, and he was putting the pieces in place.
Oh, that's interesting.
I thought this was a domino type effect. At this point, and I'm not entirely not convinced that he is still responsible for the deaths, because I was convinced as soon as the wife was killed or died that he was responsible, and he's picked him to be his employee. We'll call him employee.
Yeah, that's his job.
His job is to be employee.
Well, no, like it's his job now, so he is his employee.
I know, but you wouldn't say if you're employed. You don't say, "What was your job?" I am employee.
No, I believe his job is just bodyguard.
Sure, right, but anyway, so I said I wouldn't make predictions. I'm going to make a prediction. I think, if not him, a god is responsible for the death of his wife and his friend, who were having an affair. And as the wife of the friend puts it, Audrey, her name is, she said, she died with my husband's dick in her mouth. Did not see that coming. That was
It's such a brutal stabbing twist, isn't it? Because obviously we find out at the same time that he does, and
Yes.
it's a big gut punch to him. So it is a shocking moment for the audience.
Yeah, because he's upset about his wife's death for like 2 days by the time he gets to the funeral, and then he finds out this, and it's like, well, how do I feel now? This is weird. Audrey, of course, has her own idea. She wants to have sex with him on their graves because they can't argue with them. So if that's what you want to do, then by all means. Actually, the funeral scene itself gave me some serious Twin Peaks vibes. There was this moment of black humor where so Shadow Moon gets the button to lower the coffin into the grave, and it gets stuck, and then
it doesn't go down easy, does it?
Yeah, it gets stuck, and the guy who works there comes in, and he has to he keeps banging on the edge of it to make it go down, and eventually it does, but it's sort of like it sort of goes, it clanks like really hard because it sort of snaps out of place into where it's going, and like you just see everyone go, "Oh," it's like really really awkward, and they're all more upset as a result of it. It was a small moment of black humor that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Which again, this show sets up that it can have these elements of humor. I assume it's going to, at least early on, come more from the gods, because I think Shadow Moon's not in no position to be.
He's too much of a straight man.
Yeah, he's in no position to be joking.
He's playing off the eccentricities of people like Mr. Wednesday.
Yeah. He's a straight man, which could be a problem, because I think especially in comedies, the straight man can sometimes get the short end of the stick, where they end up being very uninteresting. At least here, I don't find him uninteresting. At least so far, there's enough going on in his life that's affected him, and that I am.
Yeah, it's at the minute his reactions are what's interesting. Seeing how he handles things are what makes him interesting at the minute. And
some of that stuff, I love his dream stuff. See when he keeps seeing this tree, and the tree comes down and like touches him and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that looked great. That's the sort of thing, if the effects went up to par, would look like absolute shit, but it looked good.
Yeah, his dreams are, a big part of this. Like the symbolism of all of them.
Yeah, when the night his wife dies, when he's in prison, and he looks up at the ceiling, and the bricks fall away, and his wife's lying there.
Yeah.
That would also look really good. So that the dreams that keep coming into it, I'm really liking those. I'll tell you the one scene that I wasn't feeling all that much.
Go on.
Now, I love the start of it. I loved them finding this weird science fiction device at the side of the road. That was entertaining. I was like, oh, what's that? Aliens as well? Have I got aliens in this? I don't think it is, obviously, but then again, these gods could all turn out to be aliens. I don't know. But the scene that took place in what was kind of like a car, but not really a car.
Yeah.
With this character. I didn't catch his name. Did he have his name in this episode?
I don't know if he gave his name. I know his name. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler. He's referred to as the technical boy,
Okay, right, the technical boy.
which
Well,
is I think I want to say on this one, this is the one casting that is very different description wise to the books, because in the books he is explicitly very fat
right, okay.
to the point where a lot of other characters refer to him as the fat kid.
Okay, right, so that's different then.
Yeah.
This was the character, when I was talking in the non-spoilers, I was saying, oh, some characters are clearly gods. This one, I don't know if he's a god, but he's definitely obviously not human. Because he's in this weird thing, and
Yeah.
Shadow Moon wakes up in this place, and he talks about a lot of things. He's asking what Wednesday wants with him, and he's like, I don't really know. I'm working for him. He's sort of disorientated, and then his cronies kind of is like, kill him, and all his cronies. And I thought it was interesting how they have a noose, because that reminded me of the scenes back at the start in the prison where these like they're all neo-Nazis, but whatever, criminals, a gang in the prison wanted to kill him. And he was having these visions of like a noose and all the rest of it. It was almost like it was foreshadowing this at the end of the.
Well, also
end of the episode.
that noose pretty much happens right before his wife dies as well.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So it's the dual symmetry there.
Yeah, but of course, something helps him out at the end.
Yes.
They all get torn to shreds, and we get this bloodbath. Like the final shot is the camera pulling back, and we just see this bloodbath of all these fallen people. Doesn't seem right, but yeah. things working for techie. So big ending. I have no idea what that was. I think the reason why that scene didn't work for me is because it was maybe the one time where I'm like, okay, I don't. This guy just feels a bit too weird. Like I don't get him yet.
Okay, I want to defend this a little bit.
Okay.
I won't know spoilers, but it becomes a lot more relevant once you realise what he is and what his purpose is in the story. The fact that it feels weird and out of place is kind of how it should feel.
I'm sure it does. I just think he's the one that didn't like other stuff. Wednesday's weird, but he's engrossing. Like, I'm interested. Like, what is he about? What's he up to? The leprechaun, not quite as much, but still interested enough.
Yeah.
Part of the mythology. Okay, we've got leprechauns. Right? Assuming he actually is a real leprechaun. Like, okay, so this extends the mythology. What other mythical beings that aren't gods but are going to be in this story?
Yeah. It's
like
a good chuckle when he goes, but you're tall. And he's like, it's just a stereotype.
Yeah. So like that's fun stuff. Whereas this one, I just kind of he's just kind of annoying. Basically, is what I'm saying.
He is annoying, and again, intentionally so.
Sure. So maybe that won't be an issue going forward. But it was the one time in the episode where I felt like, oh right, okay, what's it doing here? I'm not.
Yeah.
That's
understandable.
It was the one time where I just wasn't as engrossed, where I stepped out and went, oh, this is kind of annoying, rather than the rest of the episode where I was intrigued by all the mystery stuff going on. Maybe so, but no, I'm curious. I'm curious how he won this fight at the end. Like, how did Shadowman survive this? Who was helping him? I assume it was godlike interference and whatnot. But I have very little to go on at this point.
Yeah, there really isn't much to go on there. It just kind of goes, this is brutal. See you next time.
What I will say, it didn't actually bother me that much. But sometimes it becomes a problem in some things. Is that I felt like the music never stopped. There was always music playing.
Yeah, okay, that's definitely fair.
There was no point where I ever felt like it was too much, admittedly. So maybe they're just picking their choices wisely, their score, their source music, whatever. But sometimes that becomes a problem for me in other like movies and shows where I feel like it never. Again, kind of like what I complained with Hannibal, where it never stops the style. So having music, sometimes having no music is actually more effective than constantly having it.
It might just be a case that they overdid it here, and it'll calm down as we go on.
That said, none of the choices were bad. It was something I noticed, like maybe 2/3 through. I was like, wait a minute, have we even had a scene yet without?
Yeah, it's rare that we got silence.
Yeah.
For an extended period, at least.
Yeah, and I think that would benefit some stuff actually. Like I feel like this idea you feel alone and like the gods are there watching over you, kind of thing. Like maybe like silence, and because gods are typically silent. Like obviously this show is going to have them here talking to us, but like the idea of that maybe when he needs Wednesday to intervene and he's not there, like do we get silence then? I feel like that would be an effective use of it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm just kind of nitpicking. The style for the most part was great. Acting was good, mostly across the board. Again, Tech Kid was kind of sticking out to me, but
some credit to them with the casting for Shadow. He is not explicitly at any race in the book. It's very intentionally vague, so they could have gone any way with it, and got away with it. But credit to them.
Yeah. No, he's pretty good. Obviously, the one scene of because there's one scene in the middle that's kind of on its own, and I'm sure it'll connect to things later on. But it introduces to a character who isn't anybody else in the episode. Bilquis, her name is.
Yes.
And so this guy comes to meet her. He's seen her on an online dating site or whatever, and they're here, and they seem to hit it off. She's although I was getting the sense the whole time she was luring him into a trap. It felt very kind of. She praying mantis.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of both ultimately, isn't it?
Vibes. But so they go to a hotel room and they start having sex. It's a very graphic sex scene.
You can tell this is on Starz between that and all the F-bombs.
Yeah. It's very graphic, and she's on top, and she starts saying, "Oh, worship me," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So obviously, I'm getting godlike things because she wants to be worshipped.
Yeah.
And he starts, and it was really funny because at one point, it cuts to a side shot, and I'm like, is she kind of starting to get bigger? Nah, it's a trick of the eye. And I just dismissed it. Yeah. And then like a couple of shots later, I'm like, no, I think she's getting bigger.
It's really subtle though, isn't it, at first?
It is really subtle at first. And then it gets so ridiculous. And I'm like, wait, what's even happening here? And then you kind of get that she's swallowing him up.
Yeah.
At her vagina. And
pretty much.
Obviously, there's a moment where she gets so big, and he's like halfway in, and he's still excited, he's still happy, he's still like into sex. He's like, "Oh, this is amazing, this feels great," and it gets almost a bit comical towards the end, which is really funny. I don't think you typically think of scenes that are this explicit getting this kind of absurd.
Yeah, it's definitely like got some of that black humor in there.
Yeah. And then she appears to get younger as well. She looks younger. She looks healthier after she's swallowed him. So obviously, this whole idea that she's stealing youth from people and taking their life seems to be a thing.
It does tie into with something Wednesday actually says on the plane. He talks to Shadow about how what is it that keeps the plane up? Is it physics, or is it the faith that all these people have that of course it will stay up? And that's something that plays into this the theme of faith and belief. And this whole scene with her is her, ordering him to worship her, essentially. Like she needs the attention and the belief and the worship there.
Oh yeah. The idea that they feed off the belief.
Yes.
And maybe why like her and maybe other gods that we've not seen yet, I don't know. But maybe why some of them are not as strong as they used to be is because beliefs in gods has been waning over time, and it's not as a thing to do. See, I hate this, Well,
that's just a nice thematic point.
Yeah, but I can tell Anyway, I enjoyed that conversation about the plane staying up. Again, it was poking at themes, it was poking at ideas.
Also, that scene does give you everything you need to know to who Wednesday is.
Oh yeah, he knows what he wants, and he'll.
Yeah. It gives you everything you need to know in that, like, because that's where we first see him as the pulling the con. And then you walk into first class with Shadow, and he's just there, casually relaxed with the drink, and you get everything there.
Yeah, he's not above playing tricks. Which is why I think. I mean, I think almost everything he's saying to him is a trick. I'm not taking anything at face value. I don't trust him.
That is understandable. I find that with something that's presented as strangely as this, in the visual style, I find it hard to believe any of the slightly strange characters, because I don't. The show has kind of gone, no, you're not trusting this. You don't trust your eyes with. You don't even trust the aspect ratio. Why should you trust the characters?
Yeah, which kind of is a good device because it puts you with Shadow because he's kind of a fish out of water with all this stuff. He's not really sure what's going on. We actually have more of an idea than him just because we have a vague concept of what the show is, and we're expecting some of these characters to be gods and things like that. And when one says he's a leprechaun, we just kind of believe him because it's a TV show, and he probably is a leprechaun.
And Eddie gives him a gold coin, so
and he pours several gold coins out of his little wrist, basically.
yeah. They're not out of his sleeve; they're just out of thin air, like he says.
So no, definitely has a style to it. It's definitely got these weird things going on. Visually, it's very nice. Plot's interesting. So clearly, by the end of this episode, Shadow has agreed to working for Mr. Wednesday. Other interested parties are curious as to why, to the point where they even want to kill him.
Yep.
And Bilquis is a bit more useful after swallowing someone into her vagina.
Pretty much. And also, you should mention the gold coin. Obviously, he does a lot of tricks, sleight of hand tricks with coins throughout the episode. It's a big thing for him. And at the end, he kind of gets fed up and he flicks it onto his wife's grave.
Yes.
And then it disappears into the ground.
See, this is another thing where looking at cast lists does kind of hinted at something, and
yeah.
I'll just say I've got a feeling I know where that's going with the coin.
Yeah.
Based on nothing but seeing something on IMDb.
Cast lists are annoying, aren't they?
They are a bit at times, but there you go. That's the first episode of American Gods. Let us know what you thought of it. Comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fudge for channel updates. Individual Twitters are on the screen. But that's us, guys. So thanks very much for watching. Have you got any vanilla?